Why do some modern Bible translations change the Christmas story? For instance, maybe this year you're going to be reading the story in Luke chapter 2, and you're reading it either in the New International Version or the New Revised Standard Version. And when you get to verse 7, you read these words: And she gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped him in clothes, placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. Wait a minute, guest room? What happened to the innkeeper? We all know the story. We see it every year at our churches when we watch the nativity play. A little 5 and 6 year old Joseph and Mary walk up the aisle, and when they get to the front, they bang on the door, and out comes the rude innkeeper who says, "No room," and points them off in the direction of the stable, which is how Jesus winds up in a manger in the first place. So, why do some modern Bible translations change the Christmas story here? Well, it all comes down to a single Greek noun. The Greek noun in verse 7 that was translated by the King James Bible as in is the Greek word kataluma. Now, that Greek word in other places in the Gospel of Luke and in the Gospel of Mark indicate to us that it probably be better translated as guest room rather than inn. For instance, both in Luke chapter 22, verse 11, and in Mark chapter 14, verse 14, we notice that Jesus sends his disciples into the city of Jerusalem to ask the person that they meet, "Where is the guest room that my master may eat the Passover with his disciples?" So Jesus is looking for a place, a spare room, a place maybe they could rent so they can all gather together and then share the meal together. So guest room or spare room sounds a lot more better in the context than actually saying inn. In fact, if you go to another story in the Gospel of Luke where the word for inn should appear, that is in the story of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10, verse 34, it's a completely different Greek word. Now let's think about this. In the context of the Christmas story, why in the world would Joseph and Mary be going to Bethlehem and looking for a hotel? We know from earlier on in the Gospel of Luke, just a few verses before, that Joseph is from the house and lineage of David. That's why they're going back to Bethlehem in order that they may be able to register for the census. If Joseph's ancestry comes from Bethlehem, then I think we can assume that Joseph had maybe aunts and uncles or cousins, somebody that he could have stayed with during this time. This would have been typical Middle Eastern culture. While they are there, then the time comes for Mary to give birth. However, the house is crowded. There's a lot of people in Bethlehem, a lot of family members to register for the census. And so the only place that they're able to find that is private, that is clean, and that is warm would be the stable. Take a look at this picture I've just put on the screen. This is what a typical Israelite house looked like in the first century. Indeed, they looked like this for centuries before. But notice that on the second floor was the main area for the living, but down below where you would have kept the animals. Someplace inside part of the home was where the stable would have been. It would have been dry, it would have been protected, and it would have been warm. And thus, it would have been the ideal place for Joseph and Mary to retreat to in order to give birth to Jesus. So, why do the NIV and other translations change the Christmas story? What happened to the innkeeper? Well, go back and look at the story, folks, and you'll see actually no innkeeper ever appears in this story. From a historical point of view and culturally, it makes more sense to suggest that Joseph and Mary were there, staying perhaps with some family members, and that there was no guest room, that is, no place private for them to go and give birth to Jesus. Now, when you get to watch your little nativity play at your church this year, don't stand up in the middle of the service and tell everybody, this is historically wrong. Enjoy the play. In fact, one of the best parts of the play is when the rude innkeeper says, "No room." But keep in mind that from a cultural standpoint and historical, the reason why Joseph and Mary are there in a stable in the home is not because they couldn't get place in an inn, but because it was the ideal place to give birth to Jesus in privacy. I'm Dr. John Byron, and these are my short videos called Coffee with a Scholar. If you'd like to hear more about what I have to say, please visit my website, johnbyronphd.com. And if you'd be interested in having me come to your church, school, or event to speak, Visit my website, look at the different lectures that I offer, and please drop me a line. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Take care.